As you folks know, after the horrific Oxford shooting that took place and that horrible tragedy, we know what the liberal left does. We know what the Democrats in Lansing are doing. Hey, this is an opportunity for us to enact more gun restriction laws on people. Let's limit the size of magazines. Let's do a whole bunch of things that will basically have no bearing on shootings like this. What's going on in Lansing? What are the efforts surrounding that? And what's separating fact from fiction? Who better to talk to about all of this than Mike Barbour, who is the owner of Top Gun Shooting Sports. You know Top Gun Shooting Sports. They're the #1 gun store place in the state of Michigan as far as size, sales, shooting range, largest indoor shooting range in the state of Michigan. And I always enjoy having my friend Mike Barbour on the show with us, who was in Lansing not too long ago regarding all of this stuff that's going on. Mike, good to see you.
How you doing, Bob?
Good, thanks. Obviously, our hearts continue to go out to the families that are struggling and suffering, and we want to keep on praying for people that are going into Christmas right now without their kids, and that is brutal.
It is.
But the answer to this is not to say, hey, let's use this as an opportunity to pass a bunch of new gun restriction laws that aren't going to do anything to stop massacres like this. So what's some of the latest efforts going on in Lansing right now?
Well, I had talked to you about when I was up testifying in Lansing on Senate Bill 5187 and 5188. That was stopping the governor from shutting down the gun stores during emergency orders and those type of things. Update on that is that it did make it out of committee and is now to the House floor waiting for a vote. And if that passes, then it'll go to the Senate floor, then have to go to the governor, which I'm sure our wonderful governor is not going to sign a pro-gun bill. But that's where it's going. At least puts her on record for not doing it. So, that's some of the stuff that's going on. And as far as the update, on some of the other legislation, it was – as you said, it's a horrible tragedy that happened. It was nice of the Democrats to wait. I think it was a whole 7 or 9 days. I don't remember what it was before they started going down the more gun ban legislation and stuff. They've introduced several new bills. First one being 550 about safe storage, including private sales, where you have to educate people. They have to sign off on, a form that they know how to safely store their firearms. And the gun stores already do that now. Doesn't happen. It's not a requirement on private individual sales. But this goes into putting so many requirements on people to store their guns in a certain fashion that in the case of emergency can slow down or restrict what is, getting access to them to save their lives. So there's many times unintended consequences. Mm-hmm. So I've read the bill. I really don't think it's going to have any impact. It would definitely have not had any impact on this Oxford case. So we're putting it in as a solution, but that wasn't the problem. So, again, why are we, why are we going through this? The parents should have known at that point that they shouldn't have given him access, and they should have went.
Yeah, I mean, they should have known there was a dangerous loose cannon there with their son. There's no doubt.
Sure.
In that case, but no, you bring up an important point though about the storage requirements and such. Sometimes, and hopefully we never have to encounter this, but if somebody breaks in your home, sometimes it's a matter of every single second counts.
Absolutely.
And Mike, I can tell you in my safe where I have a couple of guns in my home, right? I have, and this is probably, maybe I'm going over the top as far as paranoid, but for me, it seems like if I'm in a situation where every single second counts and I got somebody running behind me and it's like, let me get there a half a second before they do. Okay. And I get that. I even have the guns positioned in the safe in such a way that I can reach in with my right hand and grab it right away. I don't want to have to turn the gun around.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've got it that quickly so that if I've only got a half a second lead on the person, I don't have to reposition that gun. I can just grab it and spin around right away. Only because, now, will that happen? Probably not. Probably not, okay,
sure.
Statistically. But the idea of now I have to go through a bunch of extra protocols and whatever that And then you wonder, what do law-abiding parents do that have an older teenager that maybe is at home alone sometimes, and they need to be able to protect themselves? And so in case of emergency, here's the passcode to mom and dad's gun if you have to use it.
Sure. Where's that cutoff? It's different for every family.
Right.
I'll give you another example. What if Grandpa has a bunch of guns and he leaves one out, goes to work, does whatever, and his daughter stops by with grandchild. Doesn't matter the age, 2, 4, 10, 12, whatever.
Yeah.
And mom does not take the responsibility of keeping an eye on the kid, even though it knows that grandpa has firearms, even though typically they're not left out, and the kid gets access to it. Was that grandpa's fault? Was it mom's fault? Grandpa's going to, based on this new bill, grandpa's probably going to jail.
Yeah.
You know, so there's so many things that you can come up with that are tough to say this is the right solution, and it might help in some areas, but it's going to hurt other areas. So leave the laws out of it. We don't enforce the laws we already have.
Yeah.
So, and then they went into they're doing the magazine ban that they've been trying to get forever. I can show you video after video. It doesn't matter whether I have a 10 round or a 15 or 20 round mag. If you train properly, you want to do it, you can change that mag in a matter of a second and a half. Right. And you just carry, multiple mags. The Virginia Tech shooter had like 15 mags. They're all 10 round mags, but he had plenty of ammo and shot on a lot of people. And he had 10 round mags. So, you can come up with all of these, but in Michigan, they're going to be nice. They're going to let us keep them if we already have them prior to the ban, if this gets passed. But you got to go let law enforcement know and register them. So now you're getting back into a registration scheme of either your firearms and or the magazines themselves. So again, get more things that you want.
Yeah. No, but that's a really good point, though, about the Virginia Tech shooter. You're right. He had 10 rounds. And so it's not that it doesn't take that long to pop one, to pop one out and shove the next one in for your shooter in that case. I think about what happened at Oxford High School, and that's tragic. And look, Mike, my audience knows, so I'm not saying anything new here. I am not a fan of gun-free zones at all. I'm just not. I think gun-free zones are some of the most foolhardy, dangerous. They make you feel good emotionally, but it's absurd. You're not protecting it. The only person you're protecting in a gun-free zone is a gunman. That's really the only person that's being protected. In San Francisco, you had these uniformed police officers that were kicked out of this restaurant. They were asked to leave. Why? Because the employees felt that they were violating their safe space because the cops had guns on their hips. And I'm thinking to myself, you have to be kidding me. Yeah. If somebody goes in there and starts shooting people up, number one, they're going to call 911. Number two, it's probably those very same cops that are now going to be begged to come in there.
Yeah.
But a gun-free zone is not a safe space. It's just not, because I don't know of a single gunman. I can't imagine any gunman. I'm not a psychologist, but I just don't think, Mike, any gunman is going to plan on going into a place and shooting people up, and then he sees a sign that says this is a gun-free zone, and they goes, oh, doggone it. Okay, well, I guess I'll go elsewhere.
Right.
They see that as free pickings.
Absolutely. And in that safe storage bill, even if somebody reads it and there's some feel-good stuff in there that says, okay, maybe that makes a little bit of sense and some things. I'm not for passing more of those laws by any means, but one of the other ones, SB 553, talks about felony weapons charges. It adds a simple statement. This now becomes a felony. Failure to store a firearm resulting in injury or death. It doesn't address the other bill saying with any of the exceptions listed in there or anything of that nature. So if you go based on this bill and that's what gets enacted as law, if you fail to store your firearms anyway and it results in an injury or death, it doesn't say, well, somebody broke into my house and stole my firearm. You didn't store them properly. It's your fault. You're going to get a felony. So there's
all these additional kind of storage kind of things that people come up with. Well, what about like cars? How would that work in a car? What do you? Because we got storage containers we put in our cars.
Sure. Well, what if you accidentally forget to lock your door? I've had it where I go out and somebody hit the button. It was in my pocket. It unlocked my car. Somebody got easy access to a firearm that was stored in my car for the time being.
Right.
Is that now my fault or not? I mean, so is it a felony or did they still break in my car? Door wasn't. There's all kinds of arguments on that.
Right.
Then they're also trying to put in universal background checks and get that passed into law. So, there's just so many things they're doing.
Can I ask you about universal background checks?
Yeah.
I hate that terminology because it's such a little bit of a misnomer, the way that people hear the term universal background checks and they automatically assume, well, yeah, common sense. I mean, shouldn't there be? The idea is if you don't have universal background checks and there's a bunch of people going out there buying guns without getting background checks, okay? People are, if anybody listening to us right now that goes out and buys a gun, they're going to get an FBI background check run on them, okay?
From a dealer, correct.
Okay, correct, from a dealer, okay? And you go to gun shows, and the overwhelming majority of people that are there are dealers. Now, Mike, if you could show me any of these massacres that take place where the person bought a gun legally but evaded a background check to get that gun so that he could go out and carry out a murder, then maybe I'd be willing to talk about this some more. But you don't see that. That just does not happen at all.
No, it's always, those firearms are typically purchased legally, and then the tragedy happens. There's rarely ever a case. The statistics are so small on those shootings anyways, let alone that it was bought illegally. And so, again, you're just trying to put another thing out there. And if somebody's wanting to buy a gun on the street, they're going to buy a gun on the street. They're not worried about a background check, just like with any of the laws. I do want to read to you. A lot of people don't know.
All right.
The Constitution, Second Amendment of the United States reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. There's always debate on the, regulated and well-regulated, all this other stuff. Right. Michigan's Constitution, right to keep and bear arms, reads, every person has the right to keep and bear arms for the defense of himself and the state. That is way clear. There is no debate on it. Right. So every time you enact one of these laws, put in these new bills, these feel-good things that are not going to do anything but affect the people that are law-abiding citizens, you restrict those rights more and more and more. And the big problem you have with it is we don't even go after the guys for the laws that they're breaking now. I'll give you three examples.
All right.
One, police want to, the prosecutors, DAs, all want to plead down felony firearms charges to misdemeanors. Okay, so they don't want to enforce them.
Right.
Sheriff Bouchard, after the shooting, made that in a statement to the public. Another one he addressed was background checks. You already have people, if you go into a dealer, you fill out a 4473, which is the form to purchase a firearm. It's a federal ATF form. It states on there, if you lie on this form, you are committing a felony. There are tons of people that come in, fill out these forms to see if they can slip through the system to buy a gun. Most of them, not all, because there are background checks with the information. There's issues there too. But the majority of them know that they're prohibited.
Right.
There are almost none of them. It is virtually zero in the grand scheme of things. There might be, I think one year was like 24 out of like 400,000 denials. There was like 20 people or 24 people that were even prosecuted. They don't go after those people.
Right.
Guess what those people do? If they're willing to do that and they're already prohibited, they probably have other things that you could bust them for too.
That's
just saying.
Right. I know.
And the last one is everybody's wanting zero cash bail. All these, everybody's going to this. So you want to hold mom and dad.
Get me started on that.
Magazine bans. You want to do all these things, but when people break the law, you want to give them zero bail and get them back out on the street. It makes no sense. So why are we pushing for more law?
And then if you are going to prosecute him, you're going to plead it down to nothing. If you're even going to bother prosecuting, because so many charges are being dropped anyway, and even if charges aren't going to be dropped, you're right, low to zero bail.
Yeah. And
they're right back out on the street. That is insane. And by the way, shock of shocks, look at what we're seeing all over the country, okay, with the spikes in crime, the shooting, everything else. It continues to happen. And coincidentally, these are all happening in Democrat-run cities.
Yeah.
Oh, and on top of all of that, who are the overwhelming majority of victims happen to be families of color. Law-abiding citizens just want to live in peace and raise their families.
Absolutely.
They're the victims of these crimes.
Absolutely.
So
there's two things that Democrats, if they really wanted to get this, the boards of education are overwhelmingly run by Democrats in all these states. If they really wanted to do something, they wouldn't fight this. Every kid in every school from kindergarten through fifth grade should be taught the 80 Eagle program from the NRA or the McGruff program, same thing. If you find a gun, you stop, leave the area, tell an adult, don't touch it, that type of stuff. If that message, and it is effective, I've used it on my kids, I've taught the class, I've done
Sure.
that. If they did that in every kindergarten through 5th grade, that would stop a lot of accidental shootings with kids. Get rid of that curiosity. Second one, hunter safety required for all junior high students because it addresses firearm safety. And maybe you could change the class a little bit to add some more firearm safety versus whatever. But if you taught that
Right.
stuff in the schools and made it required, whether you're going to plan to hunt or not,
Right.
these would eliminate a lot of these things. Kids would understand how dangerous firearms can be if they're used improperly.
Right.
But, they don't even want to go that route. They just want to pass a bunch of bills that had nothing to do with the situation that just happened because we got to do something. And meanwhile, they wouldn't have stopped anything.
Yeah, well, I got some ideas of things for them to do, but and it's doing something. All right, you want to do something, get rid of these stupid gun-free zones. But
Yeah,
it's
Number one.
that's a discussion for another day, I suppose. All right, Mike Barbour, of course, owner of Top Gun Shooting Sports there in Taylor. Great store. Hey, check it out, folks. See for yourself. They're on Pennsylvania, just east of Telegraph. And you can go online to wmuz.com/Top Gun. They got all kind of stuff there. I'm telling you, it's like if you're a gun aficionado, they got everything that you want, folks. And if you don't know anything about guns and you're intimidated by them, super family-friendly place. So hold your hand and everything through the whole process. So, Mike, always good seeing you. Thanks a lot, my friend. Have a very Merry Christmas.
Same to you, Bob. Very Merry Christmas to all the listeners out there and everybody at the radio station here.
You bet. Thanks, Mike. You're listening to The Bob Dutko Show.